Hello, my name is Karen Rash, and today I will be doing a sales pitch for The Big Picture by Dennis Littky and Samantha Grabel. This book is definitely one of the best investments I've made so far in my teaching credential program career. I've learned so much from it. I gained a lot of different ideas and suggestions, and the way that I now look at curriculum and the way I want to make my students' academic careers successful ones and engaging ones. So I definitely recommend this for any teacher, administrator, community member, student who is interested in taking different aspects of curriculum and really tackling the big picture. This is definitely one book that is meant for K through 12. So if that fits you, keep on. To start off the sales pitch, I would like to ask you, what is this a picture of? Now, I did zoom in from a bigger picture onto this smaller image to kind of give you an idea or a suggestion as to how these eggs will end up in the final product. When we zoom in on just one aspect, we really can't see what the bigger picture is. Now, this is the bigger picture, and I'm asking you, how does this inform you of the final product? So if you thought that this was a list or an image of ingredients that you need for baking a cake, then you were correct. The cake in this situation would be the bigger picture, or as educators, the overall big picture of curriculum and the academic experience of our students. I decided to ask one of my 8th graders what big picture meant to him. And he wrote, "I think big picture means having goals for my future, seeing the outcome of the goals I set and how that affects my future." He definitely tackled some of the things that Littky mentions in his book. And it is amazing to see just how an 8th grader already has this idea of what the big picture is and what that means for his future. So let's actually go right into some of the actual information that is in the big picture. There are 10 chapters, even though it says 9. Littky does number one of the chapters 8.5, but there is 10 chapters overall that really help understand how we as educators can look at the big picture. I decided to focus on 3 that will convince you to buy this book. The 3rd chapter, Atmosphere and School Culture. The 6th chapter, Real Work in the Real World. And the 9th chapter, Make It Happen. Let me start off with Atmosphere and School Culture. Which teacher looks more welcoming, and why? On one side, we have a teacher who seems to be engaging with his students. He's facing them. He's talking with his hands. You can see some movement there. You see some of the students taking notes on computers. Others are looking straight at him. And he even seems to have a smile. In the other image, we see the back of a teacher. He's writing notes on the board. Students just seem to be copying them. There really doesn't seem to be any interaction between them. Now, I do want to clarify that we all learn differently, and for some students, they actually do prefer taking notes and having a lecture type of lesson. But overall, Littky wants us to understand what it means to create a positive atmosphere and have a positive school culture. I decided to have a soundbite for each chapter, a quote that really resonated with me. This one says, "Enforced quiet not only keeps kids from being themselves and keeps teachers from finding out who the kids are, it also kills learning. Communication is the lifeblood of education." This soundbite truly captivates what this chapter is about. To kind of pique your interest, I decided to come up with a question for each of my highlighted chapters. So for this one, it says, how can we increase student voice and positive student-teacher relationships on campus? Littky goes into detail for many different things, but he mentions these 3 things repeatedly throughout the chapter, and they really stuck with me. Having an advisory system, meaning having a 0 period or a first period where we have a smaller class size that we can establish positive relationships with. We can have conversations. We can do restorative justice practices that will bring us together as students, as teachers, as student and teachers within the same classroom. That taps into impromptu conversations. My middle school that I work in has established an advisory program, and they are really big on having us do restorative justice practices with our students. And through this, we establish trust and respect. Something that I did in AVID last year was create social norms as a whole group discussion. I let students voice what norms they wanted in the classroom and what consequences would come if they didn't follow. The fact that I included them in that discussion, in that decision of which norms we would have in our classroom, it really made them feel important and included in our classroom. The next chapter, real work in the real world. Do the students look engaged in this project? In your opinion, does this project seem to connect to the real world? I deliberately chose a picture that you really couldn't see much of the project because sometimes we do have this narrow perspective as educators. Sometimes we assign projects thinking, oh, this is going to be very beneficial for our students. I'm going to add some real world connections. But really, sometimes we're so narrow minded and so focused on what we want to see that we really don't see what we're doing. I think I can explain this better with a quote from Littky in this chapter. Students are sitting there because they have to, but they're not involved in what's going on, and they're not learning because nobody's reaching their hearts. Let them follow their hearts to something that is real and has meaning for them. Basically, we need to establish those real world connections to what is real and transferable and relatable to these students. So that brings me to the question that I have for this chapter. How can we make classroom projects real and transferable to students? We've definitely gone over the 3 R's in our discussions and readings in this course. But just as a refresher, we have to establish positive relationships, and learning must be relevant and rigorous. We need to make those assignments come alive for our students, make them know that not just an essay is what is expected of them. Many work jobs don't require them to write persuasive essays. They need to have more skills and knowledge that 21st century learning brings to them. One way to do this for the upper grades is having internships. The community has so many positive factors that could be transferred as internships. If the school has connections with community, businesses, they can establish internships and truly integrate those into the school curriculum. For lower grades, we can also have mentors. Instead of having internships and students going outside, we can have community members as mentors come into our classrooms. That's definitely something that would bring real world connections into the class. The last chapter that I wanted to focus on is called Make It Happen. Now, in this picture, what changes would you make to your phone that you have now to make it more effective? A lot of us sometimes complain about our phones being old, or they're just not working for us, or they just don't fit our style. Well, keep that in mind with this quote. A great school is like a successful business in that it keeps looking at itself, questioning its operations, and making adjustments accordingly. When the kids change, when technology changes, when priorities change, when new research findings suggest a better way. We definitely need to look at education like Apple or Samsung look at the way they produce phones every year. Every year, Apple in September comes out with this huge convention saying, hey, let's show you what our new products are. Let us show you how we improved last year's model and made it new, made it relevant. If we have that same mentality with education, if we revamp every year and say, okay, this is what worked, but how can we make it better? Then we are on the right track. We're on the right track with seeing the bigger picture. The question for this chapter is, how can you foster the ability of the students, colleagues, and yourself to think outside the box? Littky suggests that the friends of change are the following: concentration, commitment, conversation, collaboration, caring, and conviviality. Basically, what it's saying is, if we want to make this change in education, if we want to look at this bigger picture, then we need to have all those concepts in mind. Yes, we're very easy to make excuses, but if we don't make our ideas happen, if we don't commit to them, then we cannot expect our students to commit to them as well. We want to teach them to reach towards something bigger. And all of this is only going to happen if we make it happen. We need to start the conversation somewhere. We need to talk with our colleagues, our students, our administrators, our community members, our families, parents of our students about these concepts. How can we get our students from point A to point B? How can we better prepare them for future college and career opportunities? And truly, Littky's big picture gives us all of those answers. He really breaks it down into chapters that are relatable and understandable and just make sense overall. To finish, I wanted to include one of my favorite quotes of the book. It says, "If you put good people in an environment that allows them to continue learning and that reinforces their risk taking, their passion, and their commitment, then you can make good people great." And that last part of making good people great, that can be transferred to any idea. We can make good content, good classes, good lessons great if we really focus on where we are headed. This whole concept of backwards design that we've been learning about in this course truly fits into this book perfectly. It talks about where we want to go with our students. If we know that we want them to be successful in their jobs in the future, then we need to bring those concepts into our everyday lessons from K to 12. Here is the reference, and I'm not sponsored by Amazon, but by all means, if Amazon wants to, go for it. um, on Amazon, this book is only $8.75 plus shipping and tax, but it is one of the best investments I've made. I have to reiterate that. This book will definitely make you think outside the box and help you get ideas as to how we can do that. Remember, our goal as educators is to get our students prepared for their futures in different careers and college opportunities. I hope that this sales pitch caught your attention. Please look forward to reading this book, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you.